I think just the feeling we got walking through the school. Like, there's no bells and whistles, there's no computer lab, but you can feel the energy and you can feel the joy in the kids in the classrooms. And my husband and I both looked at each other and were like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, we found our school.
Our kids were actually attending a public school, elementary school, down the street. We were looking for a more challenging environment for our kids. We didn't know what we were getting into. But literally within the first semester, we were all in.
As a public school educator for so many years, I was a never charter person. And I realize now in hindsight that I had been fed a lot of propaganda about charter schools. And when I started actually researching it, I learned, oh, it's really what is best for the education of each child.
At Great Hearts, we love to form the hearts and minds of students through the pursuit of the true, the good, and the beautiful. Our students are going to read great books, from Frog and Toad in first grade to the Brothers Karamazov in their senior year.
We took a look at that book list and we were sold.
One thing that we had found in our public school experience is that we were constantly monitoring what our children were being assigned to read, and we really loved the book list at Great Hearts because we knew we were confident that they were being presented with material that was incredibly rich and would really trigger their imaginations and their love of learning.
The distinction of Great Hearts, as we saw it at that point, was that it would have the diversity that private schools didn't have, but then also an excellence in curriculum that typically one would not find in a public school.
Our aim is to raise up virtuous young men and women who have a sense of purpose and vision, who are endowed with a sense of destiny that's been shaped by the great conversation, and who are equipped to live it out.
Great Hearts does an incredible job of uniting and marrying the intellectual formation with moral formation.
One of the great things about Great Hearts is that it appeals, instead of what is most base in our human nature, it appeals to what is the highest.
For me, education isn't just about what you're learning in class, that academic-wise. It's the building and forming of character.
They're going to study and pursue those ennobling and lasting things with teachers who are intellectually, morally, and aesthetically alive.
The teachers at Great Hearts set an exemplary example. They go above and beyond in also demonstrating these virtues in their own lives.
There's so much to love about Great Hearts, but it all starts in the classroom. What I love about teaching is being in the classroom with my students.
This is a classical education, and for generations it's only been available at elite private schools. But we seek to make it available to all families, at least to all families who are willing to go on the journey with us.
One thing that we were pleasantly surprised with, actually, when we got to Great Hearts, is that not only is the curriculum itself unifying in that it all coheres, but it also is unifying in that it brings diverse students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different cultures, and it unifies them through the pursuit of truth and through the reading of excellent material.
All the riches of the liberal arts, those which set their soul free, these are their rightful inheritance, their intellectual inheritance, and we endeavor to give them their initial possession of it.
I was initially drawn to STEM type schools because I thought I love science and technology and engineering and math. What I found out is that most of those schools really aren't STEM. What they are is giving kids a screen, which I don't think the science shows help them learn very well. But what Great Hearts is they emphasize science and engineering and math. They give them all those things that actually will make them technology workers. So I think Great Hearts, even though it doesn't advertise itself as STEM, is truly one of the deepest STEM schools that you could go to.
We're going to an elite private school without the $30,000 price tag.
As a professor in a liberal arts college, I had met a few of the graduates from the Arizona schools that came, and they were impressive.
Great Hearts was the best decision we could make for our students' education.
As we continue to grow, we invite you to join us for the journey.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at this Great Hearts Texas High School Information Night. My name is Andrew Ellison. I'm the Executive Director of Great Hearts down here in San Antonio, Texas. Special hello to those joining us from the Alamo City, but hello also to those in North Texas on the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We certainly hope that wherever you're from, you're here because you're interested in learning more about what it means to attend a Great Hearts Academy's classical public liberal arts charter high school. A little bit about my own background. I began my career as an educator in the classroom, taught high school for 6 years, was a high school and middle school principal or headmaster for 10 years. And now I get to view the journey of young people through the Great Hearts High School as a parent. Proud parents. My wife and I have one Great Hearts High School graduate and 2 other students currently in high school down here in San Antonio. So we've got an interesting agenda prepared for you this evening. We'd love to run through as many of the basic big building blocks, cultural and programmatic and extracurricular of the Great Hearts High School experience that we possibly can in 35 to 45 minutes or less. And I'd love to introduce our panelists right now, folks from within our schools who are going to be joining me this evening to share with all of you their what unique perspective they have on aspects of the Great Hearts High School. First person I'd like to introduce, just bring him up here shortly. Let me ask him to wave and say hello. Headmaster Michael Matthey from Great Hearts Monte Vista here in San Antonio, Texas. Mr. Matthey, thanks for being with us. We have also our Director of College Counseling for Great Hearts Texas, Michelle Fitzgerald. Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for coming here and being with us this evening. Representing North Texas, we have Great Hearts Irving Senior, 12th grader, Miss Atika Hussein. Atika, thank you so much for putting off your homework a little bit longer to be a part of our panel this evening. And from the far northeast side of San Antonio, Texas, we welcome also Mr. Pat Franzese, the athletic director of our Great Hearts Northern Oaks High School. Thanks for staying late in the coach's cave there, Mr. Franzese. So what does it mean to be a classical liberal arts high school in 21st century America? It's very important to understand how Great Hearts is different. This is a school, these are high schools that cut across the grain, that culturally, intellectually, in terms of their mission and vision and purpose, we aim not to run along with the herd or swim with the school of fish, pivoting and zigzagging and darting every which way that the multitudes think that we ought to hem and haw and tack. A Great Hearts high school education is designed intentionally from top to bottom with the vision of making young people or enabling young people, young American adults, to become free, autonomous thinkers, critical thinkers in the truest sense of the word, to think for themselves, to shape their own character, and to pursue a higher purpose in life. This is the purpose of a Great Hearts high school education. Now, you will notice I did not say the purpose of a Great Hearts education is to get you into college, but we will do that. You know, a Great Hearts education is an outstanding preparation for college success and college admissions. Notice I did not say that the purpose of a Great Hearts high school education is to prepare people for 21st century careers, but it will do that. A classical liberal arts education, one rooted in the study of Western civilization, in the great books from Mark Twain to Shakespeare and all points in between, in the past and in the more recent bit of history. This education is the best preparation for a full and complete life of meaning, of purpose, and of destiny. And as such, it will, of course, naturally be a great preparation for careers. But it does so much more than that. If we could start the slide deck here, I'd love to make a couple comments about our mission and our purpose. Our mission is to cultivate the hearts and minds of students through the pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty. These are the ideals that we judge by. We live our lives, all human beings live our lives with a concept of truth, with a concept of what is good, and with a vision of what is beautiful in life and in nature and in the works of human hands. We put these things first in our minds in designing a Great Hearts education, unabashedly, confidently. We believe our purpose as human beings is to pursue and know the truth about ourselves and about our world and about the universe. We believe that another core purpose of what it means to be human is to pursue goodness, to strive to become a morally excellent, morally virtuous individual of character, of good habits, someone who will be a great friend, a great employee, a great citizen, and a great member of their local nuclear family, as well as of the human family and the human race at large. And lastly, we put beauty up front. Beauty is too often ignored in our world. It's very often said dismissively, well, beauty is just in the eye of the beholder. At Great Hearts, we're not sure that that's always true. When we look at the great works of music and architecture and painting and poetry in human history, in 2,500, 3,000 plus years of continuous recorded civilization from the Middle East to the Mediterranean world, Europe, North and South America, this hemisphere that we inhabit, we believe that there are works of beauty that stand the test of time and cut across times, places, people, and cultures. We believe that an education in the true and the good and the beautiful is the best preparation for life, the best preparation for what it means to live a fully developed human existence. Now, the culture at our schools, we can continue the slide deck here. I said earlier, we are countercultural at Great Hearts. Our schools are dedicated to high things, to high purposes, where our students wear uniforms and where we all, put on our AirPods or, pick up our phones outside of school hours. When we are in school, we are fully present, plugged in not to the digital virtual world of entertainment and social media, but plugged in person to our classmates, to the subject matter that we are studying with our teachers, to our school community, and plugged in to the great conversation of Western civilization that cuts across centuries, if not millennia. We also believe, and I think you saw if you tuned in a little bit earlier, Great Hearts high schools are not schools with lots of screens, right? Our lives are full of screens. I'm sitting here on a screen right now, so are you. The screens have become so much more present in our lives over the last couple of years anyway. They're a fact and a part of modern life, and they're not going away anytime soon. But just as after a long day on a screen, whether you're young or an adult, you can feel a little bit of screen fatigue. As educators, we at Great Hearts are mindful of what can happen to the mind and the soul of a young person who never gets a real meaningful break from screens. And that's why our schools are places that are low tech, where technology will not be integrated into the daily learning experience of students, where learning media are things like whiteboards and books, paper, pencil, chalkboards and chalk, straight edges and compasses. Our students will be shaped by the material that they study, shaped by great stories, shaped by their encounter with mathematics, with the natural sciences and with art and music, not with the ephemeral, fleeting content that comes to us all around the clock through screen culture. So we're countercultural. A Great Heart School, as I said earlier, is intending to go against the grain, not to really run with the herd or swim with the school of fish. Now, where are our schools located? I think it's really important to jump into that, to touch on those details before we start speaking to our panelists about our programs. So we have two fully built out 9 through 12 high schools here in San Antonio, Texas. Great Hearts Monte Vista North, right at the heart, down in the heart of old San Antonio, just north of the downtown. Great Hearts Northern Oaks, up on the north, just inside the 1604, in between the 281 and the 35. Those are fully built out high schools with graduating classes, whole range of sports and other activities. Seniors currently waiting to graduate in just about a month and a half's time. Here in San Antonio, we also have 3 brand new high schools coming online next year. Great Hearts Forest Heights and Western Hills on the west and northwest side near the Air Force Base and near the Medical Center of San Antonio. Those schools are starting next year with a 9th grade, and we'll add a grade with each coming year. So next year's 9th graders will be the first graduates of those schools in a few years' time. And then on the far northeast side of San Antonio, up in near Live Oak, we have Great Hearts Live Oak, also coming online as a high school next year with its first 9th grade class. If we look up to North Texas, Great Hearts Irving is proudly flying the flag of the Great Hearts High School program, tucked away right up there in North Irving, kind of equidistant between Love Field and the DFW airport, right smack dab in the Metroplex in between Dallas and Fort Worth and all the many points and municipalities in between. There are other Great Heart schools up in Fort Worth, Arlington, but those schools are currently just elementary and middle schools, and adding high school grades in a couple of years' time. So that's a brief overview of where we are and what we are. And if I didn't mention your geographical region of Texas, if there's a chance you're with us from anywhere else, we're outside of the Metroplex or San Antonio, we certainly hope to be coming someplace near to you soon. But right now, our high schools are located in San Antonio and Irving, Texas. I'd like to introduce our first panelist here. Mr. Michael Matthey is the headmaster of our very oldest, our first high school here in Texas, Great Hearts Monte Vista. Mr. Matthey, thank you so much for joining us here this evening. I'd love it. You've walked the walk, both as a classroom teacher, an administrator, now headmaster, principal of the school. What would you say is important to know about what makes the Great Hearts High School academic program unique?
So I think I'm going to start in an odd place. I think we have a slide that we can show with the curriculum because I think that's really distinctive. But I think what I've learned over the past years is that our school is first marked by a knowing love and love of our students. So we have small class sizes, we have devoted teachers, and we proceed by discussion in all of our classes so that our teachers really know our students and then are able to lead them into achieving really excellent standards, both academically and personally. Sort of more specifically, maybe, our curriculum is fully integrated. So all of our students follow the same path through their 4 years of high school. And they're called to a high level of excellence in each of those areas. So in math, in science, in literature, in language, history, and philosophy, and also in the fine arts. And so this common curriculum creates a real intellectual and moral community where the students, in fact, do a large part in encouraging each other to those standards of excellence that we're seeking for them. I think One more thing to mention in terms of the most distinctive element is that humane letters class that's in the top of that graph. In many ways, it's the center of our high school curriculum. It's a 2-hour humane letters seminar. All of our high school students take this class for 4 years. And in that class, in that 2-hour, 2-period seminar, they cover works of literature, history, and philosophy. Each year is amazing. As freshmen, they read the American founders and the founding documents. They read the great American novelists. They read Twain and O'Connor and Faulkner and Hemingway, Frederick Douglass and Lincoln and the Declaration, the Constitution. As sophomores, they move on to study European fiction and history. So reading the wonderful novels of Dickens and Austen, beginning to meet Dostoevsky, the philosophy of Locke, Rousseau, Machiavelli, and even Marx. Then as juniors, they cover ancient Greece. They study justice and politics by reading the Iliad, the Odyssey, Herodotus, Plato's Republic, Aristotle's Ethics. And then as seniors, they have this amazing year where they start with the Roman epic of Virgil. They read Dante, Aquinas, and they finish with the Dostoevsky's Brother Karamazov. So that class in particular is just an amazing encounter with some of the greatest works that have been written, and a deep encounter that changes our students by that process of discussion.
So at first glance, Mr. Matthew, that looks like a college level syllabus of reading. So what would you say to a student or a parent who would look at that and say, well, I can't, my child's not going to be able to handle that? Because like I said, it looks like something we should be paying $50K a year for at a private college or something. Isn't that too advanced for high school students?
I think that comes back to where I started with love and the actual knowledge that our teachers have of our students, and then the procedures, the way in which our classrooms proceed. So I think our students, I think in fact that yes, reading Aristotle's Ethics is amazingly challenging. But I think our juniors, after several years of high school, after several years of seminar, I think they extract a great deal of benefit from it. I think in fact they are challenged by the material, but I think that high standards are, in fact, the right expression of the love we should have for our students.
Good. And just to shine a little bit of light on something that I think is implicit in that curriculum chart that we were looking at a second ago, but just to pull it out and make it explicit, are there electives in a Great Hearts High School curriculum? To what extent are students able to choose their classes?
Yeah, so as I said, we see it as fundamental to our education that all of our students follow the same curriculum. There is, in fact, one change that you can see there, one election that students make in terms of their foreign language requirement. So we offer both a classics track where our students do Latin at a high level and then take 2 years of Greek as juniors and seniors. We also offer a modern language, so Spanish or French generally, where they can in fact choose that and follow that language path through their 4 years.
So you don't get to choose whether to study foreign language. You don't get to choose how much foreign language to study, because all high school students will study 4 years, but you do get to choose which foreign language to study. What do you say to a parent or a student who would say, I'm not sure if that's right for me. I kind of want to choose my own classes, Mr. Matthew. Why does the school think it's a good thing for students really to not choose their courses, to have an integrated program of study laid out, set out for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, a question that's almost always asked. I think that part of this is because our education is not innovative. We're proud of the education we offer and its roots as classical education, as the tested and proven system of education that corresponds with the development of a curious adolescent mind into an adult philosophic mind. I think that there's appeal to sort of a shopping mall methodology of education where you choose those elements. But I think that for all students, it is good for them to study language. And I think for all students, it is good for them to study fine arts. I think for all students, it is good for them to study the works that we study in humane letters, and to study math, and to study science. So I suppose I would answer by saying I think our education is successfully proven by the test of time, but it does not embrace that sort of choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Now, a wise educator and writer I know once said adolescence is not the best time to make a choice about what you want to learn, because your mind is still being formed. Your ability to exercise informed choice has not been fully developed yet. So shifting gears a little bit, and certainly we've been talking about some very serious, high-minded things. We looked at that curriculum chart earlier. We saw, if we were able to look carefully or quickly enough, you mentioned it also just a second ago, the fine arts come up frequently: music, visual art, and drama. Again, you said those are not elective subjects. Those are classes all students have to take. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what goes on in those classes, and why, for example, it's a good thing for all of our 11th and 12th graders, no matter whether they are, wildly extroverted and natural performers, or whether they're very introverted, why it's good for all of our 11th and 12th graders to be in a play together.
Yeah. So I think at one level, there's a sort of general answer. I think that the fine arts are integrally tied to beauty, and that the encounter with beauty is really key to the whole of our education. So we could not skip the fine arts because they're essential to the flourishing, the excellence that a human being can attain. More specifically, in terms of drama, drama involves all of the arts and involves a stretching of the self. So for the extrovert, and even more so for the introvert, obviously, I think not every student ends up being the one in the spotlight with the major role, but all of our students, and this is now, I think, the 5th year of our drama program at Great Hearts Monte Vista North, but all of our students have participated in these productions. You're seeing some pictures from our productions, I think, of the last year and a half. All of our students have participated in these plays. They have both backed them, so learned some technology, learned some ability to support dramatic productions, but then also, in fact, stretched themselves by performing on stage. And I think, again, that those high standards are the greatest expression of love that we can give to our students.
That's marvelous. Thank you for that. One last thing. I wonder if you could touch on also some of the special community and cultural activities that are possible in a Great Hearts High School. You mentioned the small student body, the small class sizes, say of 20 to 25 students. Could you maybe tell us about the class trips, the junior trip and the senior trip at Monte Vista?
Sure. So there's some differences, of course, between schools. There's some traditions that grow up. I think I'm going to start before the junior night. In fact, one of our traditions that we really love is our epic nights. So we have a high school night where the students camp out and they read an epic aloud, and they punctuate that with feats of strength. So this year they read the Iliad. Students took turns reading it around a fire, punctuated by singing, athletic contests, and many other things. The roasting of a pig and other elements. So we do events like that are ways for the whole high school to come together, for the younger students to really profit from the experience of the older students. We also have some really specific rites of passage, you might say. So our juniors next week are going to fly to Moab, and they're going to spend a week backpacking, climbing, hiking, rappelling, and coming together as a class, really trusting each other. We also do a senior trip. So this is a highlight of our curriculum. This is sort of a capstone to our curriculum. We send our seniors to DC, and they spend a week there being exposed to culture and government, and some of the great art, great architecture that marks our capital.
That's great. That's great. When the students go to Moab, do all of them usually return, or do you lose any of them in the wilderness, Mr. Mathey?
So far, so good. No, we put obviously that trip's requires a lot of planning to do well, but we have a great tour group that we've really worked with, and I'm actually very comfortable. I'm not even concerned about the departure in a week. Our students coming back from that trip, the change in their attitude or something like that, it's a marvelous experience.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mathey. You've touched on so many different aspects of the school. It's sort of part, wilderness trust building retreat, collegiate books program, fine arts school. As the video we were watching earlier suggested, it's, also a deep STEM school with sustained deep study of calculus, Euclidean geometry, physics, and chemistry as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Mathey, and we'll bring you up later on in the evening when it's time for Q&A. I'd love to bring up now our Director of College Counseling for all the Great Hearts High Schools in Texas, Mrs. Michelle Fitzgerald. Michelle, so glad you could join us here this evening from your home studio.
Thank you.
So I've got a kid in college right now. I've got another an 11th grader who's getting ready, and just in 25 years, right, the pressures and the complexity of searching for and choosing colleges and being admitted to and applying for scholarships, it's gotten so much more intense than it was when we were, of this age. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit in an overview. What's the Great Hearts philosophy behind college counseling? Are we trying to get every student into an elite, East Coast college? What's the vision and purpose from which we approach the guidance counseling of our junior and senior students?
Absolutely. So the mission of Great Hearts falls right and is woven into the college counseling philosophy and what we do with potential or future students. We are looking at students as individuals and partnering with families. It is not about getting in, and I'll share some of our fantastic results. I'm so excited about our current class and where they've received acceptance about, but it's really about where they're going to thrive. At Great Hearts, we are concerned with who are they going to be when they leave us, matching them, advising with them to colleges that are best fits for their family, their ideals, their goals. And so we do a lot of individualized counseling and advisement throughout their time with us. And so, not just college, we're looking at who they're going to be as individuals in society after they leave us. We want them to be leaders and encourage all of that through the process. It's a very big decision. I've been doing this for many, many years, and the process has gotten more and more complicated. And we are walking hand in hand with our students and our families throughout the entire process, from deciding some good matches and going through that process to filling out and helping students fill out applications, reviewing essays, submitting the FAFSA form. So we are here in all aspects of the process.
Good. So you've worked as a college counselor yourself in private and public schools, and now supporting college counselors throughout Great Hearts in Texas. What are the things about Great Hearts students that colleges and universities across the country find especially interesting or attractive to them? What's the it sounds a little crass, what's the edge or the competitive uniqueness that a Great Hearts student brings to the college search process in the eyes of admissions departments?
Well, we stand out in the process just by who they are. College representatives visit our campuses yearly to meet with our students. And what we're hearing from them is they are just impressed. They're impressed with their communication skills. They're impressed with their thought out questions, how they even approach this process. From the college piece, as our students go on to campuses, it is such a wonderful thing when we hear from colleges themselves through our admissions rep that our students are in classrooms, that they're engaged. They are engaged with discussions. They're adding positive things. They're not the students in the back of the classroom with the hoods on, just taking the information in. They're asking questions. They're not asking if the material is on the test, but they really want to know. They're going into partnering and talking with their professors to have in-depth conversations. And so they're standing out. Even when colleges have interviews, and some of our colleges offer interviews, they are just, I receive emails. I've been doing this for a long time, and I was always the one promoting, and they're the ones reaching out to me, telling me how impressed they are of our students and how much they're thriving on their campuses.
Again, we looked at that curriculum chart earlier when we were talking with Mr. Matthew. A lot of Great Hearts High School students, in the one choice that they get, choose to study ancient Latin and ancient Greek as their high school languages. I mean, how do colleges look at that? Do they go, oh, I mean, that's quirky, that's weird, that's ancient, but we're not interested in students who study those dead old languages?
Well, they are impressed, and they are seeing what that does and how that translates with on the other end. And so they are looking at that as a positive, almost that it's a more rigorous track, in fact, than if taking another language. They're at the college level and they're looking at it in a positive way. I don't think I've ever received, ooh, that's odd. In fact, I think it helps a student stand out for those students that choose that track. I think our numbers speak for themselves of where our students are getting in. This was last year, and I'm very proud of what took place. If I just put these numbers in perspective, this was during COVID, and our students still phenomenally, if most of them only had one opportunity to take a standardized test, still achieving 153 points above the national average and 8.4 points above for ACT scores. Our average weighted GPA 3.99 is so impressive, and colleges are noticing all of this and how hard our students are working. One of the things that I want to go back to that our colleges talk to me about all the time is how prepared our students are. When Mr. Matthew talked about our curriculum, really when you look at a senior year, students, there's no reprieve. We continue with the rigor, and that rigor is paying off when we send our students to the next level on college campuses. I've heard from a college that said, that they got their first assignment. They had a group of our students in their class, Great Hearts students, and it was a 6-page paper. And you heard all these moans and groans about it. And the Great Hearts students were like, no problem. We've done that before. Each Great Hearts students does a thesis. They learn how to write and 15 to 20 page paper before they leave us, and that really translates into their success on the college level.
6-page paper. I call that a partial draft, right?
Exactly.
Sophia, the Great Hearts student. Yeah. While in popular culture, television and movies for years, we've all grown up with that. The representation, the image of senior year of high school as being a year of, relaxing, socializing, just checking the boxes on your way out the door, getting harassed by the assistant principal, in Back to the Future or Ferris Bueller or something like that, right? But senior year is the hardest year at a Great Hearts High School, and it is the most fulfilling at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's the 20-page senior thesis, but it's also the brothers Karamazov, right? It's it's college applications. It's also the trip to Washington D.C. and the senior class play and things like that. Finally, Michelle, can you just tell us what colleges, public, private, Texan, national, what colleges and universities are Great Hearts Texas students getting into and choosing?
Well, we are getting into colleges across the nation. And so you'll see a PowerPoint come up with, these are colleges that Great Hearts Texas students have been accepted to within the past 4 years. I want to just highlight a few of our acceptances this year with our class of 2022. Let me start with the colleges that change lives. These are colleges that are about 1,500 students or less, and we've had acceptances to Hillsdale, to St. John's, to Agnes Scott, which is a all-women's college in Georgia, and many more. Colleges that change lives really align with our mission, producing thinkers and leaders and moral citizens. However, our students are, based on their goals, are getting into and what is a best match for them, large public colleges. So we've had from across the nation so far, dotted across the way. We've started in University of San Diego. We've had Texas A&M, UT Austin, the Ohio State, University of Connecticut, and many, many more. One of the points that I want to make with our college acceptances with some of our larger public schools is that we have a lot of students that are accepted into their highly selective programs. Their engineering programs at Arizona State, the #1 honors college in the nation. We've had students be accepted into some of these elite programs. And then we go on to the more selective colleges. This is where they have 10 to 20% acceptance rates. Colleges like Case Western, Notre Dame, Emory, WashU. And then we go to even that highly selective one, which is about 8 to 10% less acceptance rate this year. We have acceptances from Vanderbilt, Rice, University of Chicago, and Harvard. So our students are getting noticed across the nation, and we're so proud. And as a counseling team, we are just thrilled. We get to work with the students and help families through this process, and it's an honor.
And just one last thing, while certainly we don't want to limit our students' choices,
Right.
we want them to be looking all across the country. For Texan families who are legacy or multi-generational Aggies or Longhorns, we've got a lot of Great Hearts grads in Texas A&M and UT Austin as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I could give you a quick statistic over University of Texas at Austin. Last year, we had an acceptance rate. Their general acceptance rates is around 30%. With all the Great Hearts who applied, we were closer to 40% of acceptances. So, and we see that trend on all of our state schools in the state. So
good. Well, Michelle, thanks again so much for offering that overview, and thanks for all the great work that you and the college counselors are doing to support our students. So speaking of Great Hearts students, I'd love to welcome up to the screen now to join me a friend, a guest from, no, it's not Mr. Franzese, it's not you. Hello. Yeah, we'd, nice guy, but we'll hear from him later. Love to bring up Miss Atika Hussein from Great Hearts Irving. Hello, Atika. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Ellison.
So you are a senior at Great Hearts Irving, 12th grader, in that most challenging, most fulfilling year here. Could you tell us, how long have you been a student at Great Hearts Irving now?
Sure. So Great Hearts Irving started back in 2015, and I started there as a 6th grader. So this is my 7th year.
So you really walked the whole journey.
Yes.
Why? Do you remember why? Why did your family and you choose to start at Great Hearts Irving, to choose that sort of strange new school for middle and high school? Why was that right for you and your family?
It was definitely a big change because I'd been going to a public school, all of elementary school, and I had stayed there since like pre-kindergarten. And going to a new school and it being already a new school as is was a little bit nerve-wracking for both me and my parents. But we were promised things like discipline and grounding and culture and a break away from technology and the new generation. And that immediately sold my parents. And once I started attending the school along with my younger sister, then we quickly realized that the community that we were getting, the small, tight-knit community, as well as the culture that they were cultivating and the virtues that they were calling for, were just going to be the perfect package for me to grow into adulthood and for me to go through my years as a teenager in a new generation and in a modern generation, but also staying close to what really mattered.
That's well said. Thank you. So you were not, you personally as a 12-year-old, not entirely sold on it at first? Did you want to go to school there? Were you a little apprehensive?
I definitely preferred the smaller community and the smaller class sizes and the more friendly and welcoming environment that Great Hearts offered, because it was such a small school and a new school. I didn't feel like I was too out of place, because everyone was starting out and we were all on a similar level. There were no honors kids and advanced kids and AP kids, but then there were also the regular class taker kids. But there was also people from all different kinds of diverse backgrounds, all different religions and socioeconomic backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds. So I didn't feel too out of place, even though I started a little bit late. I started about a month late. But it definitely made going to school and going to a new school a better experience than transitioning from a public elementary school to another charter school where there were thousands of kids and I was not getting the attention that I should have been getting as this poor little 11-year-old just trying to get my way through a 6th grade hallway.
Could you describe for us, so you've walked again from a poor little 11-year-old to 17, 18-year-old poised to take over the world. Describe for us, what's a typical day in the life of a Great Hearts High School student? Just sort of talk about the rhythm and what you do, and before school, what the school day looks and feels like, and then your time spent after school.
Sure. Well, we don't necessarily have too many events in the morning and sports practices. So in the morning, it's really just getting from home to school and getting my sister from home to school.
That's the trick, isn't it? Always, it's the younger sibling that holds everybody up. Yeah.
Actually, she's a freshman now, so I'm definitely the one that's taking a little bit longer. But it's just getting to school and driving and getting to the student parking lot and everything. But parking and everything is pretty seamless. And then, for example, for me, I start out at 8:05 a.m. in my Humane Letters class. So I am in a class for 2 hours, and then I go to another 2 periods. So I have physics class and I have Spanish class. And then mostly in high school, there's going to be you're going to have lunch first, and then this period called Lyceum, which is a almost free time period, but it's generally used as a study hall or as a more recreational time period. So people usually go outside. For example, especially in the springtime weather, I prefer going outside and either studying for an upcoming test or doing homework for that night, or playing foursquare or volleyball or baseball outside with my peers and my classmates. And then I would end off the day with 2 more class periods. So we have about 6 periods, but 5 classes because of the Humane Letters 2 hours class. And then actually this month, speaking of senior thesis, we have had senior thesis defenses for an hour after school. So usually I'll go and support one of my classmates who are going that day, and watch their defense for an hour. And if not, then
pause right there. That's just a really unique thing that you're talking about. We've already heard about the thesis, a 15, 20-page essay that a Great Hearts senior has to write at the end. What is this talk about defenses? What is a thesis defense?
It is a panel where you as a student, after you have written your paper and after it's been graded and multiple teachers and multiple faculty members have read your paper, then you are able to, as in the name, defend your paper. So it's a panel. It's going to be the student and then a chair who has, of course, read your paper. Your thesis advisor, who has stuck with you for the entire year, has met with you, has helped you throughout the writing process and the brainstorming process and the preparing for the defense process. And a reader, just another faculty member who has not spoken with you on that topic as of yet, but has only read your paper and is ready to see how you attack their questions and answer their questions. And you basically have to defend your own interpretation of the text and how much you know of the text and the paper that you have just written on the text
So,
or the texts.
So it's a 60-minute long public oral examination.
Yes, exactly.
Have you had your thesis defense already, Ms. Hussain?
No, actually, mine is in about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Could you, well, good luck, first of all.
Thank you.
I can understand why you might want to go to some defenses and watch and see what the tricks are in having a successful one. Could you just real quickly describe for us what your thesis paper is about?
I would love to, actually, because it's a text that's very near and dear to me because of the whole past year. Through Humane Letters last year, we read both the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer, those both the two epic plays that everyone hears about, but not everyone has read. But I chose the Odyssey for my paper, and it is tracking the suffering of Odysseus and Telemachus and Penelope and the other side characters in the play, how they suffer and how they question their identity, use the challenges of their identity to get over their suffering, and eventually reach a reunion and a homecoming when Odysseus finally comes home after war, after 20 years, and his son comes back home, and the whole family is finally reunited, and a peace and a joy and a happiness is found in the home finally. And it's this idea of suffering into truth that we have cultivated throughout our junior year, but I switched it up to have it be suffering into joy and peace. And honestly, speaking of senior year, I have felt like Odysseus throughout this year because we have suffered a lot. We have gone through the college application process, the senior thesis writing process, and now as things are coming to a close and I've committed to college and a bunch of senior events are happening and I'm about to defend the paper that I've already written, then it seems like things are settling and finally peace and happiness is being instilled throughout the senior class. But I greatly adore this text, and it's because of Humane Letters and because of the teachers that I had last year that I was able to be so passionate about a text and desire to write a paper about it and be excited to write a paper about it. And as you can tell, I cannot wait to talk more about it and defend it for an hour.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's not hard to write 15 or 20 pages when you love the book. And when it has changed your life and when you have no shortage of ideas. How long is your paper, Atika?
Well, we had to shorten our requirement. So it was only a 12 to 15 page requirement.
Okay.
And mine almost went on to the next line of the 16th page,
Okay.
but
All
the
right.
teacher advised not to do that. So it's exactly 15 pages.
You maxed out. Good for
Yes,
you.
yes.
Good for you. Yep. Wonderful. So you mentioned you've committed to college. Tell us just quickly about your plans for next year.
Yes, I am going to be studying public health and medical humanities at Baylor University here in Waco, Texas. It's about 2 hours away from where I am. I'm in Dallas near Irving. And that's my undergraduate plan. I'm going on a pre-health track. So hopefully I will be doing a physician's associate program after my 4 years of undergrad. But that's the plan as of right now.
Well, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished so far. Congratulations on the Baylor Bears commitment. Caution about that traffic going through the middle of Waco on the I-35, if you can avoid it at all.
The construction.
It's appalling. It's terrible. I'm sure it'll be wonderful someday, hopefully before you graduate from college there. And Beth, thank you again for being with us, and best of luck in the final trials and ordeals and challenges of your senior year. And we'd love to have you stick around for some of the Q&A afterwards as well.
Of course.
Thanks so much. Now let's bring up Mr. Pat Franzese, Athletic Director at Great Hearts Northern Oaks. Mr. Franzese, ever since the viewers got that little tease of you, I'm sure they've been just waiting with bated breath to learn more about competitive athletics at a Great Hearts High School. Could you just give us an overview? What are the the sports that are offered at Great Hearts Northern Oaks as one high school sample representative of
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So I believe we might have a slide that shows all the sports that we offer here at Great Hearts. So in the fall, we have cross country, flag football, volleyball, and swim program. In the winter months, we have basketball, soccer, and also swim. Swim being high school in the winter and more middle school in the fall. And then spring, currently we have baseball, golf, softball at our campus here. But I know other Great Hearts campuses also offer track and tennis. And where we compete in high school levels, we compete actually in UIL, which is the major public high school league here in Texas. And right now our campus competes in Division 3A, for those of you who out there are familiar with Texas sports.
Mm-hmm. Good. Can we just go back to that slide for a second there? Is that a Great Hearts Northern Oaks student dunking the basketball or on his way to right now?
Yes, sir. That's Adam Shumway. He's a senior. He's graduating this year. He's heading to Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, and is hoping to play on the basketball team there.
Marvelous. So what sports, of all the sports that you play, what's Great Hearts Northern Oaks best at? What are your signature or franchise sports, if you will?
Well, the ones we have right now are cross country and track. Those have probably been the longest ones we've had since we've 7th year in existence, and we had a track and cross country from the very beginning here at Great Hearts Northern Oaks. And so we've had a great success here. We've both sent the boys team to the state championship as well as individual girls runners in cross country to the state championship. In our track and field, we have about 20 kids who just passed the district, are going to area actually tomorrow at the meet. And I don't want to call him a star, but our standout for our track team is the senior John Hansen. He won the state 3A championship both in shot put and discus, and will be attending Purdue next year, as a matter of fact, on scholarship to compete in track.
A Boilermaker, huh?
Yes.
The mascot kind of looks like he should be a thrower. I had always thought, right? It's a beefy, brawny college mascot there. That's great. So you kind of anticipated one of the questions I was going to ask, but so even though our Great Hearts high schools are small, they're not the big 2,000-3,000 student public high schools that you see sometimes. We're competitive in state athletics against other district high schools and elite private schools. And we're also, our student athletes do get some attention from college scouts. You mentioned John Hansen. Any others? Does this happen? Is this like a once every 5 years thing where a Great Hearts student gets noticed?
Not at all. And currently we have probably about 10 or so students right now currently either competing in swim, diving, or also doing track and field at various colleges, including Hillsdale. And you have the picture up there. That is a senior from Great Hearts Monte Vista, who is getting a scholarship to attend the University of Texas for pole vault next fall. So we have, yes, sir. So we've had a really good track record of having kids succeed not only at the high school level, but then continue on athletically at the college level.
Yeah, that's great.
But if I may, I think the one thing that I think really sets Great Hearts Northern Oaks apart is that it's just not for those kids who are singularly dedicated to athletics. Certainly we have those kids who all they want to play is one sport, and they have a club team, they maybe have a traveling team. That's all they want to do. But you don't have to be that type of student in order to play on our teams and to compete for our teams. We have a number of students who play multiple sports, 2-3 sports, and will play every major season. In fact, we have a sophomore girl who plays all 4 sports. She played volleyball, girls basketball. She played softball, and then also competed in track. And so it's marvelous that you have this opportunity to play multiple sports. Even if you're a beginner, we've had a number of sophomores and freshmen who maybe played when they were younger, didn't play for a couple of years, and now that they came to high school, they want to give the sport a try again, and they have the opportunity to do so. And that's what's really unique about having such a small school, is you have the ability to play multiple sports and play sports you haven't played maybe for a year or so. And I know a father, I have 4 children who currently attend here, and I talk to families, and you hear the stories of going in and saying, well, you have to be on a select team to even come out for high school sports, or you have to have your own private hitting coach to try out for a sport. I've been sadly, I've run into family friends who, could probably play 2 or 3 sports here at Great Hearts Northern Oaks, and they walk into their big high school and there's 100 kids in the gym, and they just turn around and walk out, and they don't play that sport. And so one of the great things about Northern Oaks is, and Great Hearts, is the size allows students to not only play sports, but also if you are really that type of student who really wants to choose one sport and play, that you have the opportunity to play very competitive athletically and then make it to the next level in college if you want to play.
That's great. A real, high school sports has become almost professionalized, right, Pat? Since the days when you and I were down in the ranks, right? But so there's room for that, but there's also room for the scholar athlete at Great Hearts who's going to play a variety of different sports and not go all in with a professional trainer or specializing just in one. How do they do it? How do the Great Hearts students who are all taking this very rigorous academic curriculum and having to read 30 pages of the Odyssey in homework, or do 10 or 15 calculus problems, how do Great Hearts student athletes balance the scholarship and the incredible time commitment required to compete athletically at the high school level?
Yeah, I think there's three reasons they're able to. One is, you mentioned balance. You look at the way that the school day is constructed in terms of having breaks. Ms. Hussein mentioned the morning break or a break during the day that students can, if they want to go outside, if they want to socialize with friends, if they want to participate in club, but if they also want to do study hall, they have the opportunity to do that. We have built-in time at the end of the day. It's something called Lyceum, which is a period where students are actually have an opportunity to do their studies. Also, we have balance in terms of just the practice time. Hour and a half to 2 hours of practice a day is what our high school athletes are doing. So it's not something like you'll hear where you have strength and conditioning in the morning, an athletic period during the day, practice at night, et cetera. We don't do that. We have balance that's built into the structure of the day. I think the second thing is, because of the size of our school, you have such a great faculty-student ratio that the faculty are very responsive and proactive with the students. If they see a student struggling, they're going to go out of their way to reach out to that student. They'll schedule extra tutoring time as well, maybe before school, after school, to help that student athlete through. And then I think the third thing, and this goes back to having that one-track curriculum, is you have accountability among your peers. So if you're an 11th grader playing baseball and you have a 16-page paper due tomorrow, or 10-page paper tomorrow, well, guess what? Every junior on that team is also going to have that. And not only do you have that accountability among the students, but that's also something the coach can respond to as well, and change practice times or the schedule because of that. So I think in those three key reasons are other ways that we're able to maintain that really good balance for student athletes.
Marvelous. Is there any, just in conclusion, is there anything you want to say about, the spirit, the community that team sports brings to the life of the whole high school, whether you're an athlete or not at Great Hearts Northern Oaks?
I think anybody who's gone to high school looks at high school athletics as just being a really good way for the community to come together. Not only to cheer on your fellow teammates, but it's also a great way for parents to come and families to come and really experience that community. So yes, school without a doubt is a very important part of our culture here.
Awesome. Pat, thanks so much for giving us a little bit of extra time from your athletic office there at the campus. I'd love to bring all of our panelists back up on the screen right now. We've had a few questions come in here, and let's see if we can get any of those answered here. There was a great question that came in earlier from Mr. Cardona, who asked a great question about Great Hearts. He said, does the Great Hearts education favor extroverted students over introverted? Actually, Ms. Hussein, I was wondering if you could answer that question. You're a student and you're around extroverts and introverts. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I certainly can. So I am a bit more of an extrovert myself, but I certainly have my friends, my peers and friends who are extroverts and introverts themselves. And because participation in classes in any way are one of the biggest parts of our grades, and not just the tests and the essays and the quizzes, both extroverts and introverts are seen and heard through participation, because participation does not just have to come through talking for 10 minutes on end in a Socratic seminar. It comes from the responses that teachers get through annotations and through essays and such. And teachers understand I can say this from my perspective, that teachers understand that different students, based on their own introverted abilities and extroverted abilities, they will express themselves in different ways. I have not always been an extrovert myself. I've definitely learned to grow through my teacher's encouragement, and they will see that different students express themselves in different ways, but also encourage the introverts to speak their mind more and speak their opinions that matter greatly to Socratic seminars, but also encourage extroverts to channel their energy in different ways. So both introverts and extroverts and ambiverts, all three of those different categories, are appreciated in their own ways.
Oh, that's great. So I taught humane letters for 10 years as a teacher. I'm going to describe something. I want to know if it rings true with your experience, that sometimes the work of the teacher in humane letters is to help tone down the extroverts, to help them restrain and limit themselves, and to help introverts find a voice inside themselves that they're, that they hear, but maybe not the easiest thing for them to get out. And the idea is all students become better. Some students have to learn how to talk a little bit less, and others find ways to participate a little more fully. Does that ring true to you? Does that sound right?
Yes, it is, because at one point, especially during my earlier high school years, I was one of those introverts, and now I'm definitely one of those extroverts who needs to be toned down a little bit. But our teachers are simply the Virgils to our Dantes and Dante's Divine Comedy. They're our guides. They're helping us throughout the way. They're not telling us exactly what to do and exactly what they need us to do, because there aren't exact standards that they can hold each of us to, but they're always going to support you, and they're always going to gauge how they teach and how they treat us and how they create expectations based on how they see different class days going and different weeks going, and as the months go by, they're going to see developments. And as well as seeing developments in my peers, I see developments in myself all the time. And I know that my teachers are responsible for many of those developments, because they're supporting us and they're guiding us in different directions and just steering us a little bit.
Wonderful. Another great question in the chat. Someone says, I'm considering Great Hearts for my high-functioning child on the autism spectrum. How will his learning differences be met? How can I, as a parent, work as a partner with the school in my child's success? Michelle, I wonder if you could start to answer that question. I'd love to hear from you as a college counselor, because you've seen sort of on the exit end of how students with unique learning differences make it through the Great Hearts High School. And then maybe after that, Mr. Matthew, your experience as a headmaster, if there's anything you could add to this as well.
Absolutely. Our SPED population is something dear to my heart. I have my own daughter who was a SPED student she did not attend Great Hearts. And so you're going to have your students going to be in the least restrictive environment. They're going to be learning alongside their peers. One of the things that I have admired as an observant, as I have worked with students with learning differences, is the respect that they will receive in the classroom, not only from their teacher, my friend Miss Suzanne but even from their classmates. It is a wonderful thing to watch. You're going to partner up with our SPED coordinators with yearly meetings, and just like college counseling, it is a partnership. It is a partnership with the SPED department, with the teacher, and with you to really make sure that your students' needs are met throughout. It is a small environment, and that is a wonderful thing for students that have learning differences.
That's great. Mr. Matthew, what would you like to add about, if there's anything, maybe even specifically about serving students with high-functioning autism, if that's anything, that you have some experience with? Are you muted?
Yeah, I
there we go.
So here, yeah, I think that much of what mattered was already said. I guess I would add, I've had an amazing experience teaching some of those students. So I think they bring immeasurable good to our school, and I think our students are the community that we foster is extremely good for students on both extroverted, introverted, and then also students with specific needs that go beyond those categories. I think that challenging them with these conversations and these books is a marvelous thing. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done professionally, and I think I've also seen just amazing work done by these students.
Good. Good. So, you know, the answer is Great Hearts as a public school serves all students. We serve learners with, you know, high functioning learners. We serve low functioning students. We serve students with a variety of health impairments, and you know, as well as, you know, perfectly ordinary kids who have just, you know, were wired differently in one interesting way or another. We are committed to serving all students, and we do serve all students, and our special students, our special learners, our, you know, non-neurotypical students sometimes find that, yeah, a Great Hearts can be kind of a non-neurotypical or a non-typical school, and thus just right for them too. The small size of the classes, the care and the community oftentimes are much better than what students have experienced in larger district schools or anything like that. Another question in the comments. I'm going to throw this back at you, Mr. Matthey. A question from a parent: what is studied in the music class? I think maybe, you know, we heard you talking about how all students take drama and they act. What goes on in music class? All students don't have to sing, do they?
We do, in fact, teach singing. They do all have to sing. So that's kind of actually the heart of that year. We really think with the fine arts that doing the thing is essential. So they're exposed to wonderful music, and there's certainly a musical history component to that exposure to some of these beautiful works. But it's all centered around, in fact, the doing itself. And so they focus on choral singing, and they end up singing in a concert at the end of each semester, because in fact that's what music is. What one should do with music.
Ms. Hussein, I wonder if you could comment at all on your experiences in music class at Great Hearts Irving.
Yes, I can. I did music at least 2 to 3 years during middle school, 2 to 3 semesters. And I have done about 2 semesters of music so far, 1 semester last year, junior year. And then I'm currently in music class. So it is one of my class periods this year. And our concert is coming up in about 3 weeks. So we've been preparing. And it is a more choir-centered class, especially in 12th grade. Last year, we did a lot of music history and music theory. And then once we got to a more modern period last year, then this year we transitioned to reviewing music theory. And it's just been a bunch of singing, to be quite honest. And at first, I was a little bit scared because for drama, I was a little bit more into the whole acting thing and being up on stage and being in a lead role and having to memorize lines and putting on a whole show. Except with singing, I wasn't quite sure how my voice is going to do, but we're doing wonderfully. And I'm very excited to be singing alongside middle schoolers and underclassmen in about a month.
That's wonderful. That's great. Let's see. I think we have one more substantial question, very interesting one about humane letters. The question is, are humane letters studied in an inductive, deductive, or scholastic manner? And I think the simple answer to that question is we study the great books in a Socratic fashion or Socratic manner. Mr. Matthey, I wonder if you could just say a couple words about what it means to study the great books Socratically.
Yeah. So I think key to that is sort of what the conversation is. So it's guided in a seminar. And so our students are attempting to engage the text and get as deep as they can into what the meaning of the text is. So we teach these books with a great deal of piety towards them. And our students are really encouraged to read closely and carefully, and then to bring forward those parts of the text. So I think I might choose the answer none of the above, sometimes any of the above. depending on what the conversation is. And that conversation, of course, is a real conversation. So the students have a part in guiding in what mode we're exploring a particular text. So I think that maybe that approach is the right way to answer this. Those texts really are teachers to our students, and we want to help our students encounter those texts as deeply as possible.
Atika, what's your experience of the Socratic method in humane letters like?
It has definitely prepared me to speak more coherently and just better to anyone. I think that my relationships have grown amongst my peers and my teachers and anyone that I meet these days because of how I've been trained in a Socratic seminar. It's definitely not as nerve-wracking as one might think, being in just a square of desks and having to talk about a text for 2 hours. But it is indeed a conversation that is greatly valued, and you bring a lot from it outside of the classroom. Sometimes the arguments can be left inside the classroom and we don't need to hash them out during a humane letters break. But
are there days when the arguments go on all day long?
Yes, because we have humane letters in the morning, then everyone's a little bit feisty in the morning, of course. And the way that 11th and 12th graders have seminar is that we are totally just in the zone and having a little conversation with our book, our coffee or tea in hand, and definitely battling it out sometimes and having very respectful but sometimes heated arguments. And although we're in the morning and we're a little feisty and we can get argumentative, sometimes it will carry on into lunch hours. And then usually our teachers will overhear us continuing to talk about those arguments. And even though they're a little bit heated, they get really excited. We get really excited that these texts and like Herodotus's histories are making us argue during our lunch hour periods. And I continue to talk about the Odyssey on almost a daily basis because of the conversations that we had in HL last year. And of course, having been able to read an epic poem in Humane Letters last year has given me the passion and the desire to want to write the paper on it. And that's how I was able to choose my senior thesis text. So I greatly value it.
I'll share one anecdote from years ago. My time as a school leader or principal, after a group of seniors had a year-end party after graduation, and look, it was a hot tub party, right? One of the parents sent me an email over the weekend to say, hot tub party at our house for the graduates. I walk out to the hot tub to check on the kids, and they're arguing about Dostoevsky in the hot tub. And that's like one of those only at Great Hearts moments, and every class is going to have its moment that's like that. One last question. We have time for one last question here, and I'm going to direct this one to Michelle, as it very specifically is about colleges and college applications. The question is, at Great Hearts, are kids going to be able to earn college credits through their high school coursework? I wonder if you could say a few words about that before we wrap up.
Absolutely. So college credit is earned many of ways. Most think of AP credit. We do not have AP courses at Great Hearts, and it's intentional. Our curriculum is far more rigorous and far more set, and that we really stick true to what we are producing. So the biggest thing to know about college credit is that there are other options on how students earn college credit. There's the CLEP program. It is the same organization that offers AP courses and tests in which students can take CLEP tests to get college credit. It is a conversation that our students are having with the college counselors on their campus to know what is going to be the best CLEP test for them to take for which colleges. Also, there's college placement tests after a student gets into a college. So typically we see a lot of students taking college placement tests to earn credit on campus for language, especially our students who are at a high level of language. When they leave us, they can go to the college and credit out of a lot of classes that way as well. So there are opportunities for our students, and that's really conversations that our college counselors have individually with our scholars.
But no AP classes at Great Hearts.
No AP classes. However, a student can take an AP test if they desire to. We always tell them that they need to have a conversation with their college counselor. They would go to their local high school in which they live, and they can take that test and at that school and pay for it. It has nothing to do with college admissions. It is not evaluated in the admissions process. It is after that student takes college credit. But we always recommend students having a conversation with their college counselor about it.
All righty. Well, so we had some great questions come in from the audience. Thank you again to all of our panelists. Really appreciate you spending time sharing your perspective from the life of the Great Hearts High School as we wrap up here. For families who have been watching and you want to know what to do next, if this interests you, if this appeals to you, the prospect of Great Hearts High School, we are taking applications for high school enrollment for next year at all of our schools in San Antonio and at Great Hearts Irving as well. Go to www.greatheartstexas.org. You will see very prominently a big button at that website that tells you apply now for the 22-23 school year. It literally will take just a few minutes to complete this application. Please apply now. There are seats available especially for our 9th grades for next year, all around San Antonio and also up in Irving. More to come in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. But we certainly hope to meet you in person. If you're interested in a particular Great Hearts Academy, please don't hesitate to reach out through the website. Call attention to your if you've applied and you want to know more about the school, want to set up a tour, you can contact the school specifically that you're interested in attending. We are so grateful for your interest, for your questions, and for your attendance. And as I said, we hope to meet you in person sometime soon at one of our Great Hearts High School campuses. Signing off, have a wonderful evening and a blessed week to all.